Today, when you walk up to a street vendor to buy a single cup of tea of rupees 10, you do not usually take out a crumpled paper note or you don't ask for change. Instead, what you do is you take out your smartphone, tap on the screen, and scan the QR code, wherein your money lands directly into your vendor's bank account, all across a network that handles tens of thousands of transactions every single second. This is the story of Unified Payments Interface, or UPI, and 5 game-changing ways in which a 3-second UPI transaction have been transforming over 63 million small businesses, pulling a populous nation like India into a digital future. In most parts of the world, microtransactions like these often involve credit card networks charging a certain amount of fee that destroys a vendor's daily profit. But in India, microtransactions like these happen over 13 billion times a month. Up until a few years back, India was largely a cash-driven economy. In fact, in 2014, over 90% of personal transactions in India were done in cash. For 63 million small businesses in India, for example, the kirana stores, local cobblers, rickshaw drivers, and even roadside food stalls, this cash-driven economy was a consistent and constant struggle. For roadside street vendors, it was a constant struggle because they lost 2 to 3% of their daily income because a customer would often not be able to pay a 10 rupee coin or a 5 rupee note. Often customers would say, "I'll pay you tomorrow," and street side vendors would write it down in their own out ledger and watch hundreds of rupees vanish into unpaid debts that were never seen again. The worst was, shopkeepers would often exchange and make all transactions in cash, which would mean there was no income proof, no credit score. So when they needed some kind of loan of rupees, say 20,000 rupees, they would approach the local banks, but the local banks would shut the door on their face. What they then went to was the local loan sharks, who would charge brutally high interest rates, often exploiting the shopkeepers. And then everything changed in 2016. Enter UPI. In 2016, India's payment authority launched UPI and introduced something radical. India made UPI completely free and introduced a zero MDR, that is merchant discount rate mandate, which made UPI transactions completely free for small merchants. So what happened was, when a customer would pay rupees 10 to a local vendor, the vendor would receive exactly rupees 10, no deductions, no transaction fees. UPI changed the game completely. India processed over 460 million UPI transactions every single day, totaling over 1 lakh crore rupees every single year. In fact, India alone accounted for nearly 46% of all global real-time digital payments. While the first major shift was the eradication of transaction fees, the second major shift was the introduction of the soundbox. In fact, the soundbox helped the vendors continue with their work. That is, the soundbox would shout out payment confirmation in the vendor's local language. For example, Paytm par 50 rupees प्राप्त हुए. This audio system solved 3 critical issues. For example, number 1 was, the vendor did not have to stop his work to focus on his mobile screen and wonder whether the payment was received. Second was, screenshot scams were completely evaporated. And third was, in noisy markets, both the seller and the buyer got payment confirmation and undeniable payment confirmation out loud. After eradication of transaction fees and introduction of audio soundbox, the third major shift that happened due to UPI was the data democratization in India through digital future known as India Stack. What data democratization meant was, banks usually did not ask for formal tax returns anymore. Algorithms through UPI analyze the cash flows that happened through UPI transactions. For example, what this meant was, if a vegetable seller received 2,000 rupees every day through UPI, the bank would offer a 15,000 rupees microloan directly to the vegetable seller without requiring any kind of formal tax returns. This was a huge change for local small merchants who transformed from invisible to investable. The fourth major shift of introducing UPI was reduction of delays in supply chain networks. Before UPI, shopkeepers would have to wait for cash from daily customers, or they had to carry physical bundles of paper notes to the wholesalers, or they had to write down paper checks for wholesalers to clear them within 2 to 3 business days, and that took a lot of time and patience. But after UPI, it was much easier for the wholesalers to collect cash from the shopkeepers directly via UPI transactions. Wholesalers would ship goods faster because payment was guaranteed in real time. Shopkeepers would run lean inventories because they did not have to keep large amounts of physical cash in their drawers. By lubricating the links between wholesalers, distributors, and micro retailers, UPI turned slow, sluggish, delayed supply chain networks into high-speed engine for commerce. The fifth major shift of introducing UPI in India was direct cash flow for women. For the longest time, if you were a woman running a business in rural India, you did not exist. The money earned by women usually went to the male members of the family. Women in rural India had zero control over their income. Then came the turning point. India ensured everyone had a basic bank account, and UPI hooked right into it. By simply hanging a QR code at her stall, a woman could receive direct money into her own individual bank account. No middleman taking a cut, no husband or brother taking a percentage out from there. It was direct money sent directly into her own bank account, which meant complete empowerment. That is, when a customer paid rupees 50 or 100, it was sent directly into her own individual bank account. For the first time, it meant for women that they could have their own creditworthiness and their own financial independence and complete control over their economic futures. It was an engine for personal freedom with no dependency on men to hold or manage their cash flow. Today, nations across the globe are trying to embrace and adopt India's digital blueprint. In fact, the IMF and the World Bank call the UPI introduction in India a global masterclass in financial inclusion. Because when a system values a corner tea vendor as much as a CEO in a skyscraper, you don't just upgrade a payment, you lift an entire nation. If this video appeals to you, or if it changed the way you see the world around you, hit that like button or share it with someone who truly appreciates the genuinity of clever technology and human progress. Subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more such resonating stories that truly matter. And I would personally love to hear from you in the comments, what was your big UPI moment that made your life a little easier? Thanks for watching. Stories like these live longer and matter more when we listen to them together. We'll see you in the next one.